What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 184 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, I picked out a few quotes from this year's episodes. You probably have heard, or maybe have not, the I Am a Hardscaper mashup episodes that we did to round out 2022. But there are also many other consultants and people that we have on the show that share their ideas surrounding business. And I wanted to do a sort of wrap-up show, end of the year, of those quotes from people that really have stood out to me. And I've tried to consolidate 2 episodes here. This episode pertains more to pricing, recession, and carving out a niche for your business, which I think is going to be a very crucial thing for 2023 and a really timely thing to go over here in this episode. And then in next week's episode is going to be more employee focused, and that's something that I've struggled with in my business, so I know that this is going to be something that I'm sure others have also struggled with the labor shortage and all that. So 2 different types of topics with quotes from guests that we've had on the show in 2022 that have really resonated with me. And if you need bookkeeping, accounting, or CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA. They are at cyclecpa.com or cycle_CPA on Instagram, and they can help you out there. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services, and we'll be talking more about them later in today's episode. But without further ado, let's get into this wrap-up episode. So for this first quote from one of our episodes in 2022, we have Joshua Gillow of the Outer Spaces podcast, or Yes Express is his sales training coaching that he's got going on there. And this is from an episode back on March 21st, and it's titled Mindset with Joshua Gillow of the Outer Spaces podcast. And this was an excellent episode, and this is something that I pulled from it. And he talks about charging what the market can bear and understanding that it's a little bit ambiguous what you can actually charge for something like a patio or for an outdoor living space. It's about charging what the market can bear. Now, you can craft your business around what your market can bear. And in these past 2 years, we've noticed that since the demand for our services has gone up, we've been able to charge a little bit more for these outdoor living spaces because of that increase in demand, and being able to scale our businesses around that because the market can bear more. We've been making more, which allows us to put more money into our business and continue that growth cycle. But eventually, and it might not be next year, although with the recession coming, or maybe we're already in a recession, whatever you might think around that, this might be a time where that demand subsides and it goes down, and we will see that the market can't bear what we've been able to charge in the past. And this will come up in another quote, that you can actually charge based on the brand, the word of mouth that your business has created. But the concept of charging what the market can bear is an excellent conversation to have. Think about pricing as demand may slip a little in our industry, and not cutting yourself short. So if the demand does go down and you are noticing that the market can't bear your pricing anymore, there has to be something in your business that you can look at and decrease or cut to be able to then readjust to what that market can bear. If you're getting lots of no's and more no's than usual in the spring based on your spring of the previous season or the season before that, your closing rate isn't as high, then perhaps you need to adjust to what that market can bear. But then it just can't come out of your own pocket or your profit. There has to be something in your business that you can look at to decrease or to downgrade or to cut in order to adjust your business to what that market can bear. And let's hear Joshua Gillow talk about this here.
What is the right price for a project, Mike? Like for a paper patio, whatever. Like what's the right price?
Yeah, it's
right. It's all completely up to interpretation. Yeah. It's what is it? Is it your market? Is it the material? Is it your skill? Is it your installation ability? Is it your experience? All these. Like what is it? And the price of your project, the way you price it, is based on how much the market will hold. That's what your price is. What the market will hold. Right now, the market's stupid high. That means it's going to hold stupid high. So if you're still sitting at the bottom fighting for scraps, you're missing an opportunity of a lifetime right now. Right? So keeping that idea in set, thinking about, all right, how much is that going to be? And this kind of, I don't want to fight with those other people in competition. Really thinking about the fact that you can charge whatever you want for your project, but you need to deliver. At the end of the day, you need to deliver what they're expecting. You're setting expectations and you're delivering expectations. That's what it is. It's not a price war. That's not what it's all about. When they see these pictures of families and all of that, they're like, holy crap, they've already leveled up right then and there. And if you don't have those, start working on that kind of stuff. But think about it as the market itself is what dictates the cost of the project, or not cost so much, but the sell side of the project. And it's not what the neighbor's doing, what the other guy did. Because if you bring enough value to the table, we've been the most expensive in our market for years. We have no problem selling projects. None. And the reason why we don't is because we bring so much value that they're thinking, we call it a value stack. We teach that in our class too, but it's a value stack where we have a conversation with our client. And by the end of that conversation, they feel like they're going to pay $1 million for what we're going to do. And it's like, it's only $100,000. They're like, oh shit, sweet. It's simple. When you understand how to craft a structured conversation with somebody that is authentic to you and that is authentic to them, you'll understand their struggles, their pain points, and you can nail it down to a point where you're just having a conversation. You don't have to learn a hard script where you're like, all right, now I'm queuing up for the next objection. Like, oh, wife's not home. Oh, what would she say if you bought right now and had to deal with it later, basically, right? Yeah. Oh, well, she'd probably divorce me. That's fine. Sign here. Like, it's like these hardball tactics that just, oh my God, you just need to take like a Clorox shower after saying stuff like that. I can't do it. I've never been able to do that stuff. I'm a firm believer that, well, I'm going to back that up. I'm probably the worst salesperson you'll ever meet. The worst. I hate selling with a passion. I hate selling, but I love helping people buy their dreams. That's what I love to do. I love helping people buy their dreams. And that's the core of our entire teaching, is that focus. How can we make it a win-win scenario so that I can go out and talk to people, have conversations, and it just happens to result in an actual swapping of cash. Go to bed every night. My heart's full. Everybody's happy. I don't have to sit here and think about the next way to kind of screw somebody out of money or come up with some other strategy to try to figure it out that I'm smarter than them, so they'll pay, and then common sense will kick in. And the next thing you know, I've got to deal with a client that's pissed off because they spent money they didn't even want to, but I coerced them into it. And now the wife doesn't want it or doesn't like it, then I'm dealing with this toxic environment, all for money. I mean, it's the lowest form of currency, Mike. Money is the lowest form. So why the hell are we struggling over it? Why are we fighting over it? It doesn't make any sense.
If you go into the mindset of you are wanting to help these people are actually worse off if you don't do the project for them, because you know that you are the best company to be able to do that project. You need to be able to help them along that process, because they would be worse off if they don't go with your business, right? As long as it's ethical and as long as you're helping and that's your focus on it.
100%, dude. I want to go back to something that I want to add to the last thing we were talking about cost, right? Here's a little zinger for anyone out there that thinks lowest cost or lowest, price is going to be the best way. And I know that's how I started too, dude. So I'm not throwing rocks in a glass house here, right? So point is, the more you charge your client, not to take advantage of, but the more you charge your client, the better tools you can buy, the better education you can get, the better crew, the better team you can assemble, the more money you can put into figuring out how to help your clients more. So when you charge more, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping every single person around you. Those same team members, you can now give bonuses to. They'll stay around. You can send them to furthering education because you have the money to do so. So by going for the lowest price, you're not just screwing the client, you're screwing yourself and your future. By going as high as the market will allow, it allows you to create the team, to buy the resources, skill sets, all the stuff that you need to do things you never dreamed you could. But you can't do it without the money. You have to charge even more than you think you're worth so that you can do that for others. I look at business simply. Business is a vehicle to help others to their dreams faster. Definitely. That's how I see it. And my success in life is to bring as many people up with me as I grow. It's not about me being on top and looking down and saying, ha, 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 look how much I did. Thank you for all of your weekends and nights away from your family so I can go on vacation and I can buy the big house and you can kiss my ass in my brand new Shelby Mustang going out the door, right? So they can sit there and live in squalor. not knowing if they're going to be able to make their electric bill, or if they're going to be able to pay for the food, or whether they'll ever take their family on a vacation. That is unacceptable. You must help others lead a life the same or better than you're leading. When you do that, you will build a team that'll go through anything with you. Shift that mindset, everything changes.
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. And in this next quote, we're joined by George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping. They joined us back on July 25th, and the title of that episode was George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping Talk What It Took to Grow. And this was an interesting podcast because they'd seen multiple recessions in their time. So I did want to kind of hammer down on this a little bit in this episode, and their response to talking about recession was interesting, and what their worst recession was and how they were able to navigate it. Now, luckily for them, it was closer to the beginning of their business than where they are at right now. So they said that they were able to navigate it by being just super lean and being able to adjust their business through that recession by being that lean business, by not having lots of expenses and so on. So that is honestly where I'm at in my business. So I know I will be able to weather a storm that may be coming in the near future, or any slip in demand, whatever that might look like. But another thing that George brings up after Peter talks about how they navigated through that recession is that they can also navigate, and they did navigate through that recession and future recessions because of their brand that they established in the community. So being able to, like I was saying before with Joshua Gillow, charge based on your brand, based on the goodwill that your brand has put into your community, your surrounding area, the word of mouth that you've established in your area. That's that brand that you have created and hopefully have continued to create through the demand we've experienced in the past 2 years, and can continue to build on that, or at least sustain yourself on that if there is a storm coming, or if the demand does slip next year, or whatever that might look like. So two really interesting points that they bring up in this quote, and it's probably better that they take it away here and talk about it.
Yeah, the worst recession for our landscape business was the early 90s. And that was because Canada experienced its real estate crash then. So that was particularly difficult, and that's potentially more like what we're about to see than the 2000 recession or the 2008 recession, which were more stock market recessions, and the money market recession in the States and the American housing market. The good thing for us in the early 90s was we were small, and George and I were doing everything. So if we make $5 less an hour working, if we're making $5 an hour instead of $10 an hour, we're still not losing money because we're just working harder. As we got bigger, it became a much bigger risk for us, obviously, because now we have staff and overhead to carry. So we potentially could lose a lot of money if things get really bad. But in the 2000 and the 2008 recessions, we were protecting ourselves by making sure we have good cash flow, making sure we have good lease arrangements and financing arrangements with our equipment and our trucks, so that we're not ever strapped for cash. Because you might have a bad year, even if you lost $100,000 in a season. If it's not if it's 100,000 that you have to lose, then your business can continue the next year and you can make it back 5 times over the following year. So making sure you're not running at the edge all the time. If you have a little bit of money in your business, don't take it out necessarily and go buy yourself a new fishing boat this year. Buy yourself a fishing boat if you still have some money left in your business for that rainy day thing. And that's always been our philosophy. In 2008, we were worried how big it was going to be because it got really bad in the States. And we weren't sure how it was going to be up here. And we made sure that we vertically integrated our company so that we were doing more of our own trucking, we did more snow removal. We did more things to keep our staff busy 12 months of the year, more things to keep our equipment busy 12 months of the year. Rather than growing with staff or growing with equipment, we grew with services in our slow periods. We do a lot of renovation work as well. So we were taking on renovation jobs in the winter. And that kept staff employed, which meant we didn't have to lay anybody off in the recession. It's more work for us. It's harder to do all those extra types of projects in the off season, but it was what we felt would protect our core staff and our core equipment. So we were in good shape then. I mean, now this is going to be a unique recession, and it's possible it's going to be a little bit more painful and a little bit longer. But again, if you're not fully leveraged with trucks, equipment, and staff and cash flow, then you have some flexibility to weather those. They might have a few hard months. The spring might be particularly hard when you have low cash flow. But if you can get through those really tough periods, you can get across that river, then there's huge opportunity on the other side.
The other thing I'm going to add is brand is the antidote to recessions, right? So if you've got a really good brand, right? People don't want to take a risk with some fly-by-night guy and they give a deposit. You know what I mean? Like the network and the brand, right? So the brand comes through, obviously, your visibility, right? So they're aware of you. It comes with your reputation, right? And trust. So at the end of the day, there's still people with tons of money. Like when there's a recession, they talk about growth going from, 0 to like -1 or something %, right? But it's only in certain sectors of the economy. Now, there's a psychological component to that. But if you really want something done and you've got $100 million, you're not going to be afraid to spend $200,000 on landscaping. Like it's pocket change, basically. So the question is, why are they hiring you instead of the other guy? Well, most people in the 1%, which is who we like to work for, they don't want to lose, and they'd rather pay a bit more to get it right the first time. And I think that perception, even though some smaller company could do it, perhaps the perception is I'm going to go with the brand. And it's ironic, like in 2008, they had the Mercedes-Benz guy on TV, and he said people can't afford to buy cheap. So, wow, that was a great line, And so in my head, someone's always buying the best and paying a premium, and there's value, right? Like I have an iPhone, I paid a big premium for it, and I wouldn't switch anymore. I'm just loyal, and they got me. So the UX is great, and it's the same thing with landscaping and everything else. Brand is massive, right? So very important to do great customer service because the referrals are the secret. Like we spend our marketing is on HR. It's not on getting work because our brand is so strong that the referral system is so strong it self-perpetuates itself. As long as we do good work, we do great after service, we're going to get more work because people are not worried about whether I'm, $500 more, $1,000 more. They're worried about whether I'm going to show up and do a good job and then take care of them afterwards. So I think that's one of the biggest secrets is to never neglect the brand. That's huge.
And finally, we've got Randy Tumber, and this was an episode back on August 8th titled Natural Landscapes with Randy Tumber. Now, this was actually probably one of my favorite episodes that I've done. I asked a total of 2 questions in this 1.5 hour interview. he just took it away. Randy's actually somebody that I've been trying to get on the podcast probably since my first year. So it took a little bit to get him on the podcast, but it was well worth it. He specializes in natural landscapes, so using natural elements as much as possible, and his projects are incredible. He's really niched down to service a specific type of clients, and based where he is and the clientele that's in that area, they too are drawn to those natural aspects, and he's really recognized that, and he's really downsized his business in some extent to be able to service those clients, but to also recognize that he wants to be on site all the time. He wants to be there with his guys building these landscapes, and in order for him to do that, he can't be everywhere at once. He can't have multiple crews going and having to manage multiple projects and be selling and so on. So he's really recognized that in himself and designed a business around that, but allowing him to have built that brand that allows him to charge for his expertise, for what he's worth, and for especially being able to charge for these natural landscapes. And really incredible interview with Randy Tumber. So if you haven't listened to that, I would definitely recommend you go back, listen to that one. There's lots of great nuggets throughout that episode, but just a little bit of a taste from that episode. Here's Randy.
I kept on telling the manufacturers years ago, I don't like all the trendy looks and everything. If you guys could make it look more like stone and not so trendy, a lot of people don't differentiate between man-made and natural. So then they started coming into the square, rectangle, and the larger sizes. So it didn't look quite so busy, and it started to be acceptable. And now it's used widely, and that's awesome. I'm glad they got away from all the trendy stuff. But we still have to deal with the stainless steel, chrome, glass, the linear, everything has to be square and straight and totally predictable and so contrived looking. That doesn't appeal to me. So after having said that, I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, because there's a massive market for that out there. But I do not believe it will stand the test of time. And so I prefer to stay with my silly little idea of using nature or natural aspects, natural design, natural flow, and creating a sustainable ecosystem, whether it's in a terrestrial application or an aquatic application, native habitat restoration, all those kinds of things. These are the kinds of things that I have chosen. And so I live outside, kind of on the hub of the Golden Horseshoe around Toronto. And so if you go an hour and a half northwest or east of Toronto, there's huge country properties out there. And they bought those properties in the country because they appreciate the grade modulations and the contours and the creeks and the cliffs and the forests and the mature 100-foot tall white pine trees that are windswept and looking so beautiful. They bought there because they love that. They want that. And so my niche market that has gone very small now is something that appeals to those people. So my market is small, and I'm good with that, because I've been down the road of having a whole bunch of construction crews and maintenance crew and trying to be all things to everybody. And all it did was drive me wild. I never got on site. I would be constantly running ragged, doing sales calls and consultations and proposals and all this kind of stuff. And I realized I hate this. I hate this. I want to be on site. I want to be in the trenches with my men every day. And so I went back to one company, one crew, and that's all we did was high end. And we did everything in-house except for natural gas and electrical.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you found any of these clips helpful or inspiring, whatever that might look like, go back, take a listen to each of these episodes. Again, if you have already done so, to hear more from these people that we've had on the show. Next week, we are going to get into talking about employees, hiring, recruiting, more so along those extents. Those are These are episodes that are evergreen, so they're always going to be valuable no matter when you're listening to them. These are episodes that I've also gone back and listened to just to pull out these little clips to put this episode together, as well as many other episodes in our catalog here. So with that being said, if you need bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, Cycle CPA, they are cyclecpa.com. Reach out to them there. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for $200 off their services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.